What is going on, everybody? AJ and Eric back giggling again, apparently, for your favorite Detroit sports show, Beyond the Box, with your two favorite sports hosts, Eric Vincent, AJ Riley, ready to talk not Lions tonight. But we've got a simple question for two of our Detroit sports teams. Two teams that have not been great over the last decade. Two teams that are lost in the muck and the mire a little bit. But here's our simple question for these two teams. What is it going to take for you to buy in to the Detroit Tigers and the Detroit Pistons? We're going to lay it out for you tonight, and hopefully by the end of it, you're on board with us. So, Eric, are you ready to go?
I'm ready. I got my agenda ready. Let's get it going.
You got the giggles out?
Yeah. I think I'm okay now.
All right. Beyond the Box coming at you next. Okay, so Eric, let's talk about the Detroit Tigers first. And I've got to ask you, and we've talked about this off air, you aren't as interested in the Tigers as I am interested.
I'm a casual.
Kind of like I'm not as interested in the Pistons as you are interested.
Yes.
At DSN, you're the Pistons subject matter expert. Mm-hmm. At DSN, I'm the Tigers subject matter expert. So it's kind of like a David versus Goliath situation when we're talking about these two teams, respectively. Mm-hmm. But our goal tonight is to convince each other. Why should I be interested in the Pistons? And why you should be interested in the Detroit Tigers? And we're going to start there.
Let's do it.
Okay, we're going to start with the Detroit Tigers. Now, they've played 30 games. They're 13-17. Mm-hmm. How many of those games have you watched?
Watched one today, or I watched the game they played against Verlander and the Mets yesterday, and I think maybe one or two before that. So, yeah, I could count them on one hand. Let's say that.
Okay. I've watched every inning. So, that's what we mean when we talk about David versus Goliath here, right?
Yes.
Let me lay out some things for you, and then I'm going to ask you let me ask you the question first. Okay. This team's 13-17. Mm-hmm. Did you expect them to be 13-17 after they started 2-11?
Hell no, not at all. No, not in the slightest.
Does that surprise you at all?
Extremely surprised. Extremely surprised. Okay. Yes.
So what's it going to take for you, a Detroit guy, through and through? I mean, if you watched our live last night, you know he has a Detroit all day banner hanging behind him. He's always repping Detroit.
Always.
What's it going to take for you as a fan to buy into the Detroit Tigers?
I think it's going to take a lot. I feel like the Tigers are in a position where we've talked about this before, where we were sold a bill of goods that were not ready yet. And that turned off a lot of people. I feel like for me, a lot of it turned off too. I remember after they were this close with the Miggy, Prince, Fielder, Torrey Hunter era, where they were right there, and then they kept trying to put pieces together to make it seem like they were ready to win, where they really weren't. So a lot of the underachieving killed a lot of that for me. What I think would get me back on board now is a foundation worth believing in, and I'm questioning if they have that at this point. Is there talent on the roster? Sure. Are there things to maybe be interested in? I can see that, yeah, but I feel like this from just what I've seen. Those seats at Comerica are empty for a reason, and I feel like it's for what I'm speaking on. The foundation has not been set yet for this team. I do like the young talent of the Riley Greens on the roster. I have faith in your man Torkelson. I do think he'll be able to turn around and be a consistent hitter for this team, but we haven't seen enough of that from him. And we've seen a lot of inconsistent shakiness on top of it. Like, they're kind of Lions-esque if you think about it. They started terrible, and now they're starting to figure things out. And it kind of turned around in a weird fashion as well. It took benching Javi Baez for them to turn it crown in that one game. But I don't know. Yeah, it's going to take a lot of rebuilding, and I still think they got a lot of pieces that need to be filled in.
Okay. So let me give you some numbers.
Okay, talk to me.
We said they're 13-17 on the season.
Mm-hmm.
You know what their record is against AL East teams? So they've played the Tampa Bay Rays. They played the Baltimore Orioles, which they're 1-6 against the Orioles.
Yeah.
And they've played the Toronto Blue Jays so far in the AL East. And the Boston Red Sox, excuse me.
Okay.
So they've played 4 of the 5 AL East teams.
Okay.
Do you know what their record is against those teams? 16 games.
I do not.
2-14.
Golly.
Not great.
No.
But I've told you that their overall record is what?
13-17.
Which means they are 11-3 against teams that are not from the AL East.
That's crazy.
Now, the AL East is the best division in baseball.
Okay. All right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Stacked. The Yankees, the powerhouse Yankees, are 4th in that division right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
11-3 against non-AL East teams. They've won series against the Milwaukee Brewers, the best team in the NL Central,
Mm-hmm.
the Houston Astros, the defending world champs and best team in the AL West,
Mm-hmm.
and they just swept the most expensive team in baseball, the New York Mets.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, does that mean that for the rest of the season they're going to have like an over 800 win percentage against non-AL East teams? No, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But let me give you another tidbit. In the first 16 games, the Detroit Tigers had a combined opponent's win percentage over 600. The rest of their schedule, Eric, their opposing teams are under 500. They have, for the remaining 132 games, according to Tankathon, a website that ranks power rankings and strength of schedule and all that, they have the easiest schedule for the remaining 132 games.
Okay. That's intriguing. That is pretty intriguing.
Is that convincing enough, though?
No, but it is still very interesting. It's
okay.
To put it together that quick too. That's good. Hey, that's great work by you. Okay, I like that. All right.
Okay, so let me go a layer deeper.
Okay.
In the offseason, we traded Joe Jimenez and Gregory Soto, who were like linchpins of the bullpen.
Right.
And everybody thought that the bullpen was going to be horrific.
Yes.
Well, then let me make sure that I have the numbers correct. But from until April 15th, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So from the start of the season until April 15th, they ranked 25th in bullpen ERA at 5.55.
Okay.
Which is not good. Not good.
Right.
But since April 17th, they are 5th in the league in bullpen ERA at 2.68.
Whole month.
Is that improvement?
I would say it is.
Are you looking for this team to improve?
I'm definitely looking for this team to improve.
Okay. Not to mention Spencer Torkelson. Let's talk about him. What are your thoughts on Spencer Torkelson while I take a drink? Yes, I am Spencer Torkelson's public defender, and I wear it proudly. What do you think of Spencer Torkelson?
I think the potential is there. I think he's one of the most important faces on this roster right now, filling in at first base, being one of the needed power hitters for this team. It's a lot of responsibility on his shoulder. I don't see enough yet to buy in completely, but for me, again, as a fan of Detroit sports, we buy in to our young stars and our young rookies that we develop. We're patient with them because we like to see that payoff in the long run. And I feel like he could be one of those big projects that could turn out pretty well for this team. Again, I feel like it's a lot of responsibility for him. We've seen some ups from him. We've seen a lot of downs from him. And once he finds that consistency, like all together, that'll help me buy in. I can't just do, like, for me, I'm a players guy. Like, I'm gonna love the team. I'm always rock with the team from afar, but I need a name or a player to reel me in. So last season when Riley Green was tearing it up, I couldn't stop looking at the Tiger. I'm like, oh wow, like he made me turn head every single time. So I want Torkelson to be on that list as well. I want to see him as one of those, splash young players for this roster.
So when you have a bat in your hand, your number one goal is to what?
Don't strike out.
Okay, don't strike out. But you want to hit the ball. You want to hit the ball hard, right?
Right.
Well, baseball measures hard hit baseballs. They consider 95 miles per hour off the bat or higher as a hard hit baseball.
Okay.
You know who leads the team in hard hit baseballs?
Torkelson.
Okay. With 37. The next closest guy has 25. Oh, by the way, last year's MVP, Aaron Judge, you know how many hard hit baseballs he has this season?
How many?
38.
Ooh.
Now, Torkelson ranks 49th in the league with hard hit baseballs. Okay. Vlad Guerrero has like 59, but he's otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
But Torkelson is maybe the unluckiest player in baseball.
You say that a lot.
There's another statistic.
You say that a lot.
I do say that
I want to hear
so
why.
let me dive into it.
Let me hear that.
There's this statistic called batting average on balls in play. So it takes account of when the ball gets in play, what is your batting average anytime you've made contact.
Mm-hmm.
So Spencer Torkelson leads the team in exit velocity, leads the team in hard hit baseballs, but is only getting a hit 1 out of every 4 times. That's unlucky.
Very. Okay.
You would expect somebody with that high of a exit velocity and that, good of contact to be getting more hits. And he's just not, because they're right at people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when everybody gets all upset and is like, oh, he's a bust at 1-1, blah, blah. Like, he's not a bust at 1-1. He has less than 500 at-bats in the major leagues. He's 23, 24 years old. We're not writing this kid off.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by the way, Riley Green, he's 22, 23 years old.
Just a baby.
Nick Maton, who they just traded for, is 26 years old, and he's like one of the older guys on the team, not one-off signings that we just signed. Like, you talk about that core and you talk about that foundation, it's there.
Okay. I can see that.
Let me add one more thing to you
go ahead.
before we get going. Defense is important in baseball, correct?
Extremely.
Okay. You know who's one of the best defensive teams in baseball?
Would that be the Detroit Tigers?
Yeah, they're number 4 overall.
Okay.
In all the advanced fielding metrics, they are the 4th best defensive team in baseball. When the ball is put in play, they are turning it into outs. Javi Baez, for all the flack that he gets, best defensive shortstop in baseball right now. Oh, and since his benching is hitting over 300 and is hitting the ball hard and is putting the ball out of the park.
Why do pitchers like hitting him in the hand so much? I feel like every time I watch him, he's
the
getting
way he
popped.
stands.
Okay.
It's the way he stands. I mean, he's so close to the plate. Torkelson, too, he got hit twice in this homestand.
He did.
Because they're right there over the inside edge of the plate. It's just going to happen.
I feel like every time I turn the game on, he's like shuffling his hand out like that.
Yeah, no, it happened. But listen, I'm telling you, as a fan, this team is 11-3 against non-AL East teams.
Okay.
I'm also telling you that for all the moves that Scott Harris didn't make that everybody thought he should make, he made the right moves.
Okay.
Because this season was all about evaluating. What do we have and what do we have at the major league level? And guess what?
What's that?
You have a team that 30 games into the season is only 4 games under 500. With the easiest schedule remaining for the rest of the year, I'm telling you, if there was ever a buy now opportunity, like the stock market was low and Warren Buffett says buy when stocks are low and sell when stocks are high because that's how you play the stock market, obviously. Mm-hmm. That's like 101 elementary.
Right.
The stock's low right now, but I'm telling you it's on the rise.
Okay, so help me out. I'm warming up. You're doing good. You're doing good. Okay. Give me 2. I'm asking you 2 things that'll warm me up to this. Now, how far away do you think they are from being solidified contenders? And one more thing, again, I believe sitting in these media seats, you can't sit here without a true agenda of a player or a team. So like a real spicy take that you believe is going to come to fruition. You already had it about their record. That was cool. I need something a little bit spicier. Maybe you have, somebody maybe winning MVP. I have one for myself we're going to talk about for the Pistons. How far along are the Pistons from the Tigers for being contenders? And give me your best agenda that you have for this team moving forward.
Okay, what do you define as contender?
Um,
Perennially in the playoffs
yes,
like they were?
yes.
2 years.
That's not bad. It's not bad from what I thought it'd be. Okay.
Next year getting into the wild card.
Okay. I can rock with that.
And my hot take that you want?
Yes.
Alex Lang is the best closer in baseball this season.
And that's a big spot for the Tigers. Their closers are always a big position. Yeah.
And I will say this, if for whatever reason they decide to trade him, which I don't think they will, you will see maybe one of the largest returns we've ever seen. Not in baseball necessarily, because Juan Soto got a massive return last year. But in recent Tigers memory, if Alex Lang is on the move, you're going to get a king's ransom.
That's a lot to ask for, though. Okay. But you don't think it's going to happen?
I'm just telling you. I wouldn't trade him. I'd be okay with it, but I wouldn't do it just because of how good he is. But he's got like 4 years of team control left.
Okay.
So that's what ups that price.
You did good. You might have talked me into a few games. Okay.
Good.
Okay.
I hope I did. But we want to know what you think. Are you sold on the Detroit Tigers? Are you ready to buy into the Detroit Tigers? Let us know in the comments below, because there's a lot to like about this team. Yeah, you may not be happy. Yeah, you may have a little PTSD from the old regime. I get it. I was there with you. In fact, I did a video last year saying that we'd been lied to as fans, because we had been lied to as fans. But I guarantee you right now this team is better than it was last year, and there's reason to believe.
All right, man. Look, I appreciate your pitch. You did a good job selling me on the Tigers. I think I bought in for a few games this season at Comerica. I think I can see that, taking me and my lady out there. Now, let me bring you into my world. Let's talk a little Detroit basketball, which you've had a problem with, actually.
Yeah, the first question. Okay. Is Mason still the public address announcer?
Yes, and he's the best in the NBA still. He's still goated, yes.
And that's how much I don't watch the Pistons.
That's okay. You at least knew who he was.
And let me put all the cards on the table real quick.
Go ahead.
I have not been interested in the Pistons since they traded Chauncey.
Okay.
It was the worst decision, I feel like, for the franchise, and it kind of soured me on them. That's been a long time. So I'm really being brought into your world now, because I know the NBA has probably changed a ton.
Oh, yeah. That was the downhill beginning right there for sure. And I understand why a lot of former Piston fans, or even current ones, are still hurt. But, man, when I'm telling you right now, because you just told me, now's the time to buy in while they're low, there's no better time to be buying in on the Detroit Pistons. You know why? Because they were just the worst team in the NBA with a 1765 record. It can't get no worse than that.
It can't be lower.
It cannot. And I believe there is so much to look forward to with this team. Outside of the resources and the construction, I believe just in terms of the intrigue period, you're seeing this team put together some pieces that you can be proud of and actually enjoy watching. You talk a lot about how the style of play is just garbage in the NBA now. I feel like the Pistons, even though they're not a great team and they can do some sloppy stuff, they don't do a whole lot of the things that bother you. You don't see a whole lot of flopping by the Detroit Pistons. You see them still play with that gritty bad boy attitude that Jalen Duren has. Like you see that a lot with this team. And for me,
that's what I like.
This roster is stacked, not just literally, I believe stacked with stars, at least 3 of them. And I'm going to go through the rules real quick. Jalen Duren, who we just drafted last season, I think has absolute star potential. He looks like a baby Dwight Howard as the former youngest player in the NBA. 7 foot, 250, I want to say. He plays like an absolute machine. Very good defender. One of the best rebounders he'll absolutely be very soon. Sooner than later with this team. I believe he has done an amazing job at establishing himself as a dominant paint presence. And with the guys he has around him, his dunking, like he's one of the strongest guys in the league. I'm telling you right now, he's going to break a backboard at least one time before he retires.
I'd love to
He's
see
a monster.
I'd love to see it.
Jaden Ivey is another one of the untouchables of the Pistons right now. he's someone who stepped in last season and had to carry the water for the Pistons when their backcourt changed. Cade Cunningham goes down with an injury after 12 games. Jaden Ivey, who was supposed to play off the ball as a shooting guard, ended up moving to point guard and excelled through his rookie expectations. He wasn't perfect all season, but he's one of the most exciting players on this roster. Super hyper athletic, really developing as a passer. His jump shot looks a lot more fluid than it did to start the season, improving as a defender as well. I think he is, again, I think the second most important player on this team. And of course, the most beloved Detroit athlete, now that Jamal Williams is out of here, is number 2, Cade Cunningham.
Oh, you used my words against me.
I had to go there. You knew it was coming. Cade Cunningham is, I think, the most important Detroit sports athlete that we have right now. I believe as the number 1 overall pick from 2021, he is the most important Detroit sports athlete right now. Not only do I think he's a phenomenal player, I think he represents and puts on for the city better than anybody else. Like, you see a lot of players come in and you question if they're really, for the city and they're happy to be here. Cade has been phenomenal in terms of what he's done with his family. His brother, his cousin, they're sitting up here putting a 3-on-3 basketball tournament together in Dearborn. They have embraced the city and building charity work and doing a lot of things together. And his play on the court, I believe he'll be one of the best point guards in the NBA. And I think he has an upside of being an MVP for this Detroit Pistons team. I think it's something that you can get on board with, man. I really do.
Those are some bold takes. The most important player in Detroit history, or Detroit right now.
I really believe that.
I know he's important. I know he's important. And I know that this team is exciting. But I don't know. It just seems like they're just in this stuck mentality that they can't get out of their own way. Whether that's the owner, who I think is probably the worst owner in Detroit, even though Chris Ilitch still does reside here and own 2 teams.
Tom Gorse. Or
the fact that they can't get the head coaching thing right. Right? Like, it just, to me, Dwayne Casey gets fired by the Raptors after taking them to... Didn't he win the championship and then they fired him?
He got fired. He went to the playoffs, and then right after he left is when they went to the championship and won. Yeah.
Okay. So you have a coach of that caliber. You can't put enough talent around him to do anything. And then a lot of people this year, I read all the message boards and stuff like that, blaming him like it's his fault that they're doing all this losing when your best player's out. Mm-hmm. I just need to see a splash, and I need to see something go their way. Right? We talked about the draft, they're the worst team, which means they should have the best odds for number 1. Mm-hmm. But I've also read that they have the best odds to land at pick number 5 as well.
They do.
And it would be so much Detroit versus everybody for them to end up number 5 and Victor ending up at number 1 where we should have been picking. Now, I will be much more interested if things fall their way.
Sure.
Or if Troy Weaver can make a move that goes, okay, it's not like it's going to be anymore.
And I think, honestly, they're at a point now where, and let me take the points that you just made, actually, because, yes, as of right now, they don't have a head coach. Fired Dwayne Casey. Right. Not even fired. He actually got promoted and elevated to a front office position. So he's not even he didn't leave the franchise. He's just being elevated and taken off the bench as a coach. So at this point, they're looking for a coach that can help reinstall some defense that they can continuously play and rotate with, and some more creative offense as well. That was one of Dwayne Casey's biggest problems. His substitutions were horrible. He's supposed to be a defensive-minded coach, and we never saw that with this team. Now, I think that's one of the biggest storylines to pay attention to, which also makes one of the Pistons one of the more attractive teams as well with the young talent that they have Also,
Milwaukee Bucks,
with the recent,
they just fired their coach.
They just did. Budenholzer's out of here, and that could play a role as they were just interviewing Charles Lee, who's their assistant. So that's something to keep an eye on. But at the same time, you just talked about the draft pick that they could have, where it could be anywhere from 1 to 5. So you could be getting a generational guy like Victor Wembanyama. They could maybe get into a Scoot Henderson, which that's a whole other conversation in itself. But the point is,
that's another point guard, right?
Another point guard, yes. Another ball-dominant point guard. And then on top of that, they also have more cap space to sign free agents than anybody. But the Pistons at this point, while they could make a splash by drafting someone like Victor Wembanyama, they're at a point where the foundation pieces that they have, you're waiting for those guys to take that next step and that next jump. And they've already showed that they could do that with the way Ivy grew through the second half of the season, where his jump shot was looking horrible. He was out of control with turnovers. And then he really found a way to take control of that offense. Cade Cunningham as well.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
I know you have a point, but I've got to interrupt you. Are you getting to the point where you're saying they don't need a Victor Wembanyama? Because if you're saying that, I know you're crazy.
They could use a Victor Wembanyama for sure. Do they need him? No, I'm not going to say that. No, they don't need Victor Wembanyama. No, I'm not going to go there. You just said it would be the most Detroit versus everybody thing for them not to get that pick. You're 100% right. So I already got my expectations low. I'm ready for them to get number 4. And honestly, based on what they need, that doesn't bother me too much. Because the draft picks that they have coming up, it's a lot of 3-and-D guys that are shooters and defenders and fit the mold for what they need. Again, they could certainly use a 7'3" monster who plays like Kevin Durant, of course. But do I think they need him in order to get to a winning position? Not necessarily. Yes. Not necessarily. Oh, okay. No.
So listen, here's based on everything that you just said, though, they have the foundation, right? These guys got to take the next step. Would not a generational talent like Wembanyama take them over the top?
Of course it would. But you already have a generational talent on your roster.
So you just have to stop at 1?
No, of course not. But again, but I'm not sitting here saying if he doesn't get here, they're going to be right back to where they were. I don't believe that. This team is looking to win as soon as next season. Now, how many games? I'm not expecting them to win no more than maybe 35 to 40 games, maybe. But that's still a huge leap from 17. But to me, it's not going to take that generational Victor Wembanyama in order to make that happen. Like, to me, I think Cade could have a all-star bound season next year, and I think that could help put them over the top. I feel like if he takes that kind of all-star step, that's what you want to pin your hopes on more. Not who you draft. You don't want to put your hopes on another super young rookie to put you over in a winning position. You want it to be the guys you have. And I think Cade is generational. He's a number 1 overall pick. He does everything. He's shown that he can elevate talent around him, even G League players. He's who you want to key your attention on. It's not Victor Wembanyama. That'll be the headline. The Pistons don't need Victor Wembanyama to start winning. They don't.
Okay.
But that would be a good selling point to get you back on board, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would. I would be very interested in the Pistons if Victor Wembanyama is wearing the Motor City jersey.
So we got until the 16th to the lottery. Yep.
The 16th. Okay. So we will be talking more Pistons coming up to the draft lottery and who they're going to take. Then the draft is in June, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
Eric?
Yep.
Okay. So the draft is in June where they hopefully will draft another generational talent, even though apparently they don't need one. I don't know. If I'm constructing a team, I'm getting as much generational talent as I possibly can. But that's a discussion for another time. We want to know what you think, though. What are your thoughts on the Pistons? And can you buy into them now when they're low? Is the future bright enough for the Pistons that you're like, okay, I can buy in right now? Let us know in the comments. And hey, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure that you subscribe, pound that notification bell so that you can get notified when our content drops. It's dropping every Tuesday, every Friday at 5 o'clock with a new Beyond the Box. And we've got shorts and reels coming out all the time with the latest breaking news from Detroit sports. This has been your favorite Detroit sports show. He's one of your favorite hosts, Eric Vincent. I'm another one, maybe, AJ Riley. We will see you all live Monday night at 9 o'clock.